Today is a day where, again, injuries are, yes, you're right, at the forefront. But it is still a day for many of celebration, and we are not going to skip over that. In today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls from that episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for tuning in, joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. And I hope you've had a really good week so far. You've made it to Wednesday, midway point of the week, which means that the Premier League is only a couple of days away. And of course, it also means that we've got more days for our players to hopefully recover from the ridiculous number of injuries that we continue to suffer and have setbacks from, which we're going to discuss in today's show. Good morning to those of you joining us live in the chat box. Good morning to Brian, to Black Shine, to Steve, to Matt G, to Jamil. Good morning to Claire. Good morning to Natty, Tom, and Barry, and Stephen. We've got Steve and Black Shine and Glenn and Ember Lee and Matt G and Arasilki and Pam B and Martine. all of you in the chat box this morning, thank you so much, as always, for tuning in and listening. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your subscriptions. If you would ever be so kind to drop a like, to subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. So go and do it. Do it now if you're not already doing so already. But let's jump into today's story, shall we? And we begin with a massive congratulations to Scotland and to Kieran Tierney, who yesterday produced a fantastic goal. In some ways, it's annoying that there was the brilliant goal that was scored afterwards by McLean, I think it was, because Tierney's winning goal was absolutely brilliant. The third goal in this game between Scotland and Denmark, and of course commiserations to Christian Norgard, of course, and likely will be missing what would have been the last chance for him to be at a World Cup. At least we think so. Maybe it won't be, but Norgard may indeed have now missed out on the opportunity to play at his very final World Cup. But Scotland, well, we don't know because it could be a playoff, of course. They could still qualify. But Kieran Tierney's brilliant goal in what felt like the closing seconds of the game after so much emotion. I mean, Scott McTominay, what a goal from him to kick things off. And Scotland were pegged back twice as they took the lead twice in this game. But the third time was what it would take to qualify them for next year's World Cup in America, Canada, and Mexico. So, yeah, and again, sticking on the front of World Cup qualifications, Haiti qualifying for the World Cup for the first time, I think potentially in there. I mean, someone said it's been 50 years, I heard, but I don't know if that's since they kind of started playing professionally or if indeed they'd managed to qualify 50 years ago. I think it's more the former. But a massive congratulations to Haiti on their qualification for the World Cup as well. Absolutely brilliant scenes, amazing scenes over there, seeing those celebrations. And last night, of course, Ecuador have already qualified for the World Cup, but they finished last night with a strong victory, beating New Zealand 2-0 in America as they continue to test kind of the facilities of the competition. And Hincapié keeping a second clean sheet in 2 games as he now returns to Arsenal later on today ahead of the North London Derby, where he is expected to play some part, we imagine, as well. So, my goodness, Arsenal and the international break finally, it seems, mercifully, has come to an end, but it has not left Arsenal without scars, and the scars is what we are going to discuss. But it feels increasingly unlikely that Viktor Gyokeres is going to become part of Arsenal's squad this weekend. There is a chance, of course, there's always a chance, but the frustration seems to be at the moment that the growing feeling is that Viktor Gyokeres is not going to be part of the squad for Arsenal's game against Spurs this weekend. Certainly, I'm hearing nothing at the moment to suggest that he has recovered yet from that injury suffered at Burnley. And what's made this worse, of course, is the news regarding Kai Havertz, who Julian Nagelsmann has confirmed that he has suffered or had suffered a setback in his recovery. We don't know. It should be worth pointing out when this setback happened. We don't know if it was a week ago, a day ago, a month ago. We don't know. We don't know if it happened after Arteta said that he's hopeful of Havertz returning after the international break. We don't know if it happened before that. We haven't got a clue on the context of when that setback took place. But what we do know is from what he said that he will expect him to return toward the end of this year, which is November. November is toward the end of the year. There's no beating around the bush there. And regarding December, that feels more likely at this stage, but it still remains a frustration that we may not have these players for Spurs, Bayern, Chelsea, and that instead we might have them back in December instead. We will wait and see on that front, but it feels increasingly unlikely that a fit centre forward will be available. Gabriel Jesus continues his rehabilitation, but just because he's on the grass, just because he's working on building up that match fitness, does not mean he's going to be able to start the game. Will he be in the squad? Who knows? It'd be very surprising to me if Jesus is, but I'm up for surprises right now. I'd quite like a surprise, to be honest, because the biggest news of yesterday, as I sat down to talk with Elliot from the Arsenal Vision podcast on a show yesterday evening, if you missed that show yesterday on the channel, it is available for you, of course, on all relevant platforms. So make sure you go and check it out if you haven't done so already. I sat down with Elliot for a chat about all things Arsenal, the injuries, the derby, and, of course, Michael Oliver's appointment as well. And he had a very interesting take on Michael Oliver's appointment for that game as well. So make sure you go and catch up. But the big story, of course, that broke literally in the minutes before we went live was that both David Ornstein and Sami Mokbel have reported that Gabriel is expected to miss, after his most recent scans, at least 4 weeks. Maybe even, according to David Ornstein, as many as 2 months. We could be missing Gabriel for, which effectively is ruling him out of the entire Christmas schedule. The big concern is that he could miss the Liverpool game, which, of course, takes place on January 8th, which, if he was to miss 2 months from now, would include that game. It would also include the trip to Bournemouth, the 2 games against Aston Villa, the hosting of Brighton, playing Palace in the League Cup quarter-final, trip to Everton, hosting Wolves, going to Club Brugge, home to Brentford, away to Chelsea, home to Bayern and Spurs. He could miss that many games for Arsenal. It is... yeah, it is absolutely gutting news from an Arsenal perspective that they could lose a player for this long. And it just fills me with, I have to be honest with you, it just fills me with anger. It fills me with anger because this was so avoidable. That's what's so annoying about this. We're not talking about a competitive fixture or a World Cup qualifier or a European Championship qualifier or even, at the very least, a Nations League game. We're not talking about Arsenal playing a Premier League game or a cup game. We're talking about a friendly where there was knowledge, where there was understanding that Gabriel, was already struggling somewhat and had to warm up on his own in that Friday session. And yet he started this game. Who do I blame? I blame the Brazilian national side for this, 100%. I can't look anywhere else. The knowledge was there. For Gabriel, some of you may end up kind of pointing the finger at him, and I would understand to a degree why. However, I have to empathise with the point of view that the context for Gabriel stands out above all else. Because being Brazilian, there is that extra element. And for those of you that know your history about the Brazilian national side with Arsenal and the Brazilian national side with Gabriel, you'll know exactly why I've got my sympathies for him. So I'd recommend those of you that are still pointing your finger, I think rather lazily, at Gabriel, do some of your reading. Do some of your reading around Gabriel and the Brazilian national side and what happened to him 4 years ago to understand better why he absolutely feels that he has to give his 100% commitment, particularly in a World Cup year, to his nation. But it should be on the staff, the medical team, the coaches to understand that there's no need to risk him and to give him that encouragement that he doesn't need to play in this friendly. So go and do the reading around it is what I would recommend to you, because it is definitely worth educating yourselves on the extra context. Now, we'll hear from Mikel Arteta, of course, on Friday ahead of the game at the weekend. And I don't think we'll hear anything extra beyond what we now already know. Unfortunately, I think we'll just get confirmation from Arteta that he has, of course, suffered this. And we'll get some of his reaction, of course, as well to the games that are to come. And how many players are going to be out, and his, of course, reaction to the fact that the Brazilian national side decided to start the player, even though there was this understanding, of course, that he was already kind of in the red when it came to kind of fatigue. So, yeah, that is very difficult. Very, very, very difficult to take. As is, of course, when you find out maybe that people have been snooping at your data online. But thankfully, I've got just the trick for you to help prevent you from feeling that low when that might indeed happen to you. And that is by giving yourself an extra layer of protection when surfing the net, and by using the one, the only NordVPN. And if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2 year plan with 4 months extra thrown in free on top of that too. And if you're not happy with the service for whatever reason, get a 30-day money back guarantee. It's buffering then for a second. And if you're happy with the service, of course, you want to stick with it because it gives you the ability to change your geodigital location on your laptop, your mobile, or indeed your tablet. You can shield yourself and your data from snoopers and criminals online, perhaps when you're using a public Wi-Fi service like at a hotel or a restaurant or a train or anything like this. Make sure that you give yourself that extra little bit of protection, because you need that these days. There is no doubt that it is a necessity. Right, let's go to part 2, your questions and more, right after this. Right, let's go to part 2, your questions and more. In this period of the show, we'll be tackling as many as we can, getting your thoughts and feelings, of course, on the latest situations and scenarios that have plagued the Arsenal squad. So let's go through as many of these as we can. As I just will say, as a reminder, to go and give a watch to yesterday's episode with Elliot and catch up on that. I forgot to tell you in the morning show that we were doing an evening show. So that's my bad. No, I apologize for that. But yeah, go and give that a listen. And of course, also check out my episode that will be a weekly episode over on the Seeing Red YouTube channel with John Cross, myself and John covering Arsenal every single week, home and away. And I'll be providing you with all the insight into the club from our travels covering Arsenal at press conferences, at games, into Europe and anywhere else. So make sure you go and check out the show if you haven't done so already. The first episode is out now. Right, let's jump to the chat and tackle these questions, shall we? Adnay says, should medical departments be held accountable because Havertz's injury seems to be due to a poor load management? Is it? Where have you heard that? Where is the information that Havertz's injury is because of poor load management? I'd love to know where that's coming from. Let me know where I can find that information. I'd love to see where that's come from. If it's come from somewhere, I want to read it. So tell me, I'd know where you read that. Stu says, Tom Carragher, a prominent public figure for Sky Sports. Why is he allowed to be so openly biased against Arsenal on their platform? You'll have to ask him, Stu. Lizan says, we can cope with that, Gabby. I'm more concerned about the forward area. I do tend to agree. Paul says, Marino came off at halftime, Tom. Have you heard anything? No, I don't think so. I've certainly not heard anything to suggest that he has suffered any injuries or anything like that. It would be very Arsenal to lose the fourth choice option. So, yeah, difficult to know what's going on there. I did see ESPN's tweet, though. But apparently Marino is, I'm seeing in the comment sections that Marino is okay from what people are saying. So yeah, seems he's all right. So hopefully he is indeed okay. Lloyd says, Tom, how far is Odegaard's injury, or how bad is it, and when can we expect to see him back? Probably, I would be surprised to see him in the squad for Spurs, but maybe in the week or so after that, maybe we could see him involved again. He's not training yet. So, that still has to happen before he can return. Offside trap with Grande says, hopefully Arteta makes Mosquera and Nkapie feel important so they have the confidence. I don't think he needs to make them feel important, mate. I think they feel pretty important already. Tom says, is it possible that the impact of Gabby's loss will be minimal given the floor Mosquera is still very high? Yeah, I think that having Mosquera, having Calafiori, having Luis Skelly, having Nkapie gives us an incredible amount of depth that we haven't had already. Jeffrey says injuries happen, but some reasonably need to go to the player here. Gabby is an experienced player and he's had some injuries in the past. Not saying he's the main responsibility is on him. Again, I really think that people need to take more into account the context around this and Gabby before you start pointing your fingers at him. It's really worth doing the reading around it. It really, really is. Shay says, who will score our corners now? We have plenty of players who can score from corners. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Right, so should Arsenal go in big for Antoine Semenyo this January? I'd be well up for it. I'd be so up for it, but I don't know if indeed that's going to happen. Abhinav says, funny observation, Tom, from my point of view. On Haters' channel during Arteta's press conferences, I love the way that you give a quick mischievous stare at Mikel once he finishes his conference and walks past you. Do I? I didn't even know I did that. So they obviously turned the microphones off, or at least they should after the presser finishes. Sometimes there's a couple of jokes made on the way out, so that's probably the reason why. But I didn't know I did that. So thanks for pointing that out. I'll make sure I'm more aware, and I'll look straight at you in the camera next time. Lloyd says, City, Liverpool, United and Spurs all have key players injured, but our own fans are the ones blaming our medical team. Yeah, I know. It's funny, isn't it? Ken says, Arsenal's annual November struggles continue. What is this month? Well, yeah. I know. November always happens to be one where something bad happens. It's because it's my birthday in November. That's why. It's clearly the reason. I can't have all nice things in a month. Joga says, did you see that Militao is injured his adductor for Brazil too? I think that's a coincidence. Didn't know that, but am I surprised? No. Emily says Timber isn't injured. He's got a cut. Yeah, Timber's fine. Yaya says, I don't blame Brazil. It's a World Cup year. I don't get how you can't blame Brazil. The Brazilian national team knew that he is in the red and they start him in a friendly. You are pulling the biggest load of mind games ever to have no consideration for blaming the team that played him in a friendly. Come on, behave. Mikey says, Gabriel must be kicking himself today. He must have felt something before the game. He took the risk and paid the price. Paul says, didn't we invest in the summer to cover these very injuries that we're now having? I'm more worried about Michael Oliver, given his track record. I think Elliot made a really good point yesterday. I know a lot of people turn around and saying, well, this is why Arsenal spent so much money. This is why we have the squad depth. So we don't suffer. The reality is, and Elliot made this point, and again, he makes it better than I can. So going back and listen to yesterday's show, Arsenal are going to lose points because of Gabriel's injury. Just because you have the depth, just because you have quality in reserve, doesn't mean that it's going to guarantee you the mitigation of dropped points. You're still going to drop points. You may not drop as many points. That's the key part, is Arsenal can't afford to drop as many points as they dropped when Gabriel was out last time, at the end of last season, or lose a Champions League semi-final, lose a big moment, quarter-final of a League Cup maybe, who knows. But we are going to probably drop points because Gabriel is out, regardless of whoever you sign. Because no matter who you sign, they're not as good as Gabriel. So the quality levels are going to dip. They hopefully just don't dip as much as they would do if Gabriel, or rather his replacements at the moment that we have, weren't there. So that is the reality. ASC Tilladai says, I agree with Elliot last night on Michael Oliver. I feel like everything that's a 50-50 will be hyper-focused on. However, I do have the worrying line at the back of my mind of by the letter of the law. Indeed. Lloyd says, Nkapie will score our corners, mate. Don't worry. We did it. He did it in Germany, and the way that we set up, he can do it here too. He has got very good aerial presence in Nkapie. So it is something that was noticeable when kind of scouting him ahead of his move, is that he has got a presence in the box. He really fights for every ball. NJ says, is Madueke and Martinelli fit? They're kind of the two that I have more hope for, but again, we still don't have clarity on those two at this point in time. We're still awaiting more news and more information on those two, and we'll get that in 2 days' time. Tom says, to what extent does Arteta's Pep tactics of being vague at best with releasing detailed injury information cause more frustration than necessary in our fan base? I mean, he won't give a single care about how you feel or I feel or others feel about him not releasing information. It obviously, from a journalistic point of view, it sucks. I'd much rather he told me and others exactly what the latest is, but it's of a great benefit for Arsenal to keep their opponents guessing. So while from a journalist standpoint, it's annoying, from a fan point, it's annoying, from a football standpoint, it's absolutely the right thing to do. So I never feel aggrieved when he doesn't give any information at all with that. So yeah, I think that's absolutely rubbish that fans and our feelings should be taken into account when it comes to the element of that as well. Yaya says, I don't get the disrespect, Tom, to Brazil. Friendly or not, it's preparation. Load should be managed. Yeah, trust me, mate. The preparation for your World Cup, you want your best players fully fit and available. And so therefore, when there's the chance they might get injured at a friendly, who knows, maybe even suffer a more serious injury that means they miss the World Cup, which is definitely a threat, definitely a risk. It pays you not to play those players. They know what they're going to get from Gabriel. They've had it throughout their entire qualifying campaign. They don't need to play him in a friendly. Lizanne says, I feel Nagelsmann's comments on Havertz are taken out of context. It was more in relation as to why he's not selected. I get that, but we didn't really know about the setback. So I think that's information that we didn't have. Adnay says, Tom, according to the Germany manager, Havertz had a minor relapse. These things happen due to heavy workload in training. This might be on a medical team or fitness coaches. Adnay, I've not seen that anywhere, mate. No one's talking about setbacks as because of workloads or fatigue or being overworked in training or coaches other than you and some other crackpot theorists. No one's discussing that, mate. Only you are. You're the one that, and others are the people that come up with these crackpot theories because people are desperate. They pine for it. They yearn for it because people are unsatisfied without knowing absolutely every single tiny detail. And because they're not satisfied with knowing absolutely everything, their brains come up with theories that when you actually analyze them, scrutinize them, make no sense whatsoever. I don't know how many times I have to say it, time and time again. And I know that the people that believe this won't change their mind because that's the human society. People are given evidence to prove their points of view wrong all the time. Did they change their mind? No. People are too proud to do that. This club spends millions on doctors and coaches and sports scientists and strength and conditioning methodology and coaching methods and equipment to get the best results. I've asked Mikel Arteta myself about the idea of other factors being at play. He has told me and you through the medium of television that they have looked into every ounce and corner and cranny, hate that word, that they possibly could to find a reason as to what else could potentially cause an increase in injuries that they therefore can control. Do they want more injuries? No. Do they want to mitigate injuries? Yes. So why on earth would they create any level of risk in a training controlled setup? Not on a match day. Match day, you can actually look at it and go, the emotions, sometimes you can make errors on a match day. I get that. And Brazil have done that. And I'm critical of that the same way I was critical of them with Saliba at Anfield. But when it comes to training, when it comes to those controlled environments, to somehow find a way of putting those nerve endings together in the brain to come up with some crackpot theory that something's going on that we are purposefully or even accidentally to the point where it is so noticeable that no one would think to do anything about it at this level of this sport with what's at stake and the millions of investment and money and prize money that's available. You have to say that you are ignoring common sense to the nth degree. It is really as plain and simple as that. It really, really, really is. Runs of Cow says, it took my son 20 years to take an interest in Arsenal. We watched Sunderland match together. Should I disown him now? No, just encourage him that it's not always that bad. Professor Aggressor says, the club pays Gabby generational money and to throw it all away playing in a friendly is irresponsible. Yeah, again, it's nothing to do with that. And also, they don't have to pay Gabby's wages while he's out injured. It's also worth pointing out. Chano says, Tom, given the injury situation we have, how many points do you think that we get from games against Spurs, Bayern and Chelsea? I hope 7. And I hope the draw, if there is going to be a draw, that it's against Bayern. I think if Arsenal can win their 2 league games and draw against Bayern, they've done well. If you told me that we beat Chelsea and Spurs but lose to Bayern, I'll take it right now. I think you'd be mad not to take that. 6 points from 9, but the 6 points are against Spurs and Chelsea. You'd take that, right? If I offered you that now, 6 points from 9, you lose against Bayern, but you beat the 2 league teams. You've already won 4 out of 4 from the Champions League. Losing against Bayern's not a big deal. You're still going to probably finish in the top 8. You just have to win 1 or 2 more games of the 3 that are remaining. When you've got Bruges and you've got Kairat and you've got Inter to come, you back yourself to get at least another win off those 3 games. Maybe even 3 from 3 based on the players that should be returning for those matches as well. So absolutely, I'd take 6 from 9 with those 2 wins against Spurs and Chelsea all day long if you offered me right now. Tom says, does Tom deserve a Nobel Peace Prize more than Trump for managing injury conspiracy theories? I'm not going to go into that rabbit hole. Ryan says, these are multi-million-pound assets. There are checks and balances in place to avoid those kind of situations. Exactly. That's why the club are obviously putting everything in place to try and protect their assets. But they have no control about a club, or a nation rather, calling up their players. If the nation calls up their player and they want to go, they go. It's as simple as that. Mark says, Tom, if Liverpool spent 450 million and got worse, then perhaps simply investing money is not the sole answer. Well, it depends how you spend that money, Mark, doesn't it? If you spend it badly, if you spend it in an unbalanced way, and you don't spend it very smartly, then absolutely you could do more damage than good. So money is not always the answer, but when you spend it correctly, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. DJ says, is there an argument for bigger squads being allowed due to the amount of games being played domestically? Yes, absolutely. There should be bigger squads. There should be less games. It really is as simple as that. And that would solve a lot of the problems that Arsenal and other clubs are suffering. I'm not answering that knowledge. Super says, the fact that we knew Gabriel was in the red zone, you would think suggests that our medical team knows what they are doing. We are always going to be on the fine margins at this level of competition. Marvin says, Tom, I have come to realise that most of our fan base are so scared due to our failures in the past, they can't help themselves but find a reason to blame the manager or the medical team. It's part of the game. Yeah, I think you sum it up really well, Mark. Like, there is a level of, and again, for those of you that don't like this terminology, I don't personally have a problem with using it in a metaphorical sense in this way, but there is a level of PTSD associated, I think, with Arsenal fans in previous seasons that has bled into kind of our mindset and for many mindsets going into this campaign. And I think, from my point of view, if Arsenal don't win the league, it's a catastrophic failure. If Arsenal don't win the league this season, I mean, what on earth has happened? It must be the most monumental injury of all time to our squad to have cost us the league. And to be honest, we're heading in that direction. There's no beating around the bush there. Arsenal's injuries this season have been cataclysmic, despite the fact that we still managed to find ourselves top of the table and clear by 4 points, having only lost 1 game all season in all competitions. So, yeah, look, it's mad where we are right now. Ryan says, if we can't get Semenyo because he'll probably go to Liverpool to replace Salah, who else would you be happy with? Kenan Yildiz is the other name at the moment that I think is most exciting for Arsenal. Vakan says, could you do a show with a medical expert to help us understand injuries in football? I could, but it's not really going to help too much. It's not going to help you beyond learning and understanding the mechanics of injuries. All they're going to do is tell you about the fatigue and that level. It comes down to decision making. And also, they're not going to have the insight that somebody within the club has. So it's a lot of guesswork still. So, and you have to admit that it's not going to change people's minds, mate. You can't give people facts that are so convinced by their own opinion and expect them to change their minds, even though you're giving them facts. Just look at the world of politics today. Like, you give people facts, they don't listen to them. Like, it's pointless. So it'd be a great idea, but it's just not worth it. John says, AFTV is saying that Arsenal are going to offload Waneri and Jesus in January. Have you heard anything? Have they said that? AFTV, Waneri, Jesus. Have they said that? Let's have a look. Now, it says on the website, reporting from Isan Khan of the Daily Mail. This is, again, I'm not having a go at you, John. It's just one of my pet peeves. It's always worth looking at the articles that are posted on websites, see where the actual source is from. Yeah, and Isan's a good source in the Mail, and I don't doubt his information, but it's not AFTV reporting this. It's them aggregating the story from the Mail. So, just always be worth to see what the source of the information is, because if it's from some places, there's no point ever trusting it, and you should know what those places are by now. But Isan's very connected, very well connected indeed, and has produced this story suggesting that Arsenal are open to a loan move for Ethan Nwaneri in January, and the likes of Gabriel Jesus could leave as well. I'd be very surprised if Arsenal allow Gabriel Jesus to leave in January. I personally don't think that Arsenal want to allow Jesus to leave in January. With the injury situation they've had with their centre forwards, I think Arteta will want to keep him. Nwaneri, they may want to. I don't have any information on that side, but the last I heard is that they don't want to get rid of him permanently. Certainly not. I don't know about a loan side of things, but it would seem a little bit naive to get rid of Nwaneri when we've had as many injuries that we've had. In the summer, I'm all open for a Nwaneri loan deal potentially, but not now. We don't need to lose any players from this squad. We need to keep everybody. Everybody in this squad needs to be kept as well. Patrick says there's a lot of managerial decisions when it comes to playing footballers with injuries. In rugby, it's left entirely up to the medical team and not the hands of the management. It's true, there are different methods in different sports as to how players are allowed or not allowed to play. Rugby is a lot more physical, and obviously there's a lot more consciousness about head injuries in that sport than there is football, so that's also worth pointing out. Shay says it would actually help, Tom, because I want to understand what we are doing that other clubs aren't. Well, again, the medical expert's not going to be able to tell you that unless they work for Arsenal or have worked for Arsenal or work for other clubs. So, and you say that we have the most injuries. We had the most injuries last season alongside Spurs, but we didn't the season before. We haven't this season. Spurs have again. Other teams have as many injuries, not Liverpool and City, frustratingly, but some other teams have as many injuries as us. You think that we have the most because you're an Arsenal fan and you expose yourself to more Arsenal media than any other club. And psychologically, you might think that we have the most. We don't. If you know all of what the other clubs are going through, you'll know that that's not the case. But we have a very bad record for this season and last season. But the season before that, we had a great record for injuries. So it swings and roundabouts. And it seems that the swing is hitting us at the moment. Ken says we're sharing our goals well around the team, but which of our senior players still haven't scored for the first team? Who hasn't scored a goal for Arsenal's senior team yet? Hincapié, Mosquera, David Raya, Kepa haven't scored. That's 4. And who else hasn't scored? For Madueke hasn't scored yet. Is that it? I think that might be it. Zubi scored. Yeah, I think that might. Norgard as well. Norgard hasn't scored yet. Dowman hasn't scored yet, if you want to say he's in the senior team as well. So, yeah. There's a few. A few still haven't scored. Marcus says, but Tom, keep Jesus for what exactly? 90% of the time he's still injured. But he's hopefully not going to be injured. So that's why. K West says snowing blood would have been interesting. I mean, what did I say? Snowing blood? What? It's snowing in London, apparently. Good. I say good. I hope it stops by. So I'm going up to London actually later. So saying that, hopefully the trains will be all right. Ryan says, Tom, if you were Miles Lewis Skelly, would you push for a low move? No, he's relishing the competition, and he should be. That's what it is at this level. It's competition. Game In says, do you think Havertz can play against Chelsea? No idea, mate. Sorry, don't have any idea. We don't know any information about Havertz's return at the moment. Michael says injuries have become our Achilles heel, and I don't know if we have had all of our players fit at any given time. I don't know if any club have had any of their players fit, all of their players fit at any given time either, to be honest. Leezen says, I'm still expecting us to extend our 4-point lead. Am I optimistic or delusion? No, absolutely. I mean, look at the gap between us and the other teams at the last international break and this international break. I think that's absolutely. I think, again, I'll point you in the direction of the brilliant Score guy, who tweeted during the break. In fact, I think he started a brand new podcast. Go and check it out. You can find him on X, Score Guy. But let me find that tweet wherever it was. Let me find it. Where was it? I'll just have to search. That'll make it easier. Basically, it was the gap between us and Chelsea and Liverpool and City. Before and after, or before this international break and the previous one. So before the October international break, 1-point lead over Liverpool, 3-point lead over City, 5-point lead over Chelsea. before the November international break. 4-point lead over City. A 6-point lead, over Chelsea. 8-point lead over Liverpool. We have extended our gap to those teams from one international break to the other. So if that continues to march, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant indeed. Mark says, Tom, hypothetical scenario, would you accept playing some teams twice away if it meant we had less injuries? I don't know what you mean, Mark. No, because that would break the fairness of the sport. Chunho says, given that Havertz has had 2 major injuries, I think that he will be not realistic that we encounter setbacks during his recovery as well. Yeah, it's also very fair to point out. Soup says, who will play on the left out of Saliba and Mosquera? I think it'll be Saliba. I think Saliba will play left, Mosquera right. That's what I think will be the team. I think the team on Sunday will be Raya, Timber, Mosquera, Saliba, Calafiori, Zubi, Rice, Eza, Saka, Marino, Trossard. That's what I think the team will be on Sunday. So that's my guess. But we'll talk about that more on Sunday ahead of the game. And of course, we'll be hearing from Mikel Arteta on Friday. So we'll hear from him and you'll hear from me on that Saturday morning podcast as well, breaking down that press conference as well. Shanita says Saliba plays on the left. Does he? I mean, I'm sure he can play on the left for France, but I'm sure he does play on the left for France. But I'm not saying that he will play on the left for us. Let's have a quick look, shall we, at France's results from their most recent fixture. Their most recent game was 16th. Was Azerbaijan. Saliba didn't play that game. What about the game before that? Ukraine. Saliba played on the right. Upamecano was on the left. So not always, apparently. John says AFTV put a vlog out about it last night, Tom, but I didn't see who the source was. It's always worth checking, John, who the source is. So I won't having a go at you. It's just a pet peeve of mine. Amira says, who's the most accidentally became important at work footballer you can think of? Think Marino. Yeah, without a doubt, it's Marino. 100% it's Marino. Don't think there's any debate about that. Per says, is it a systematic problem or are Arsenal just unbelievably unlucky when it comes to injuries? It is it's the latter. Like, we are unbelievably unlucky when it comes to injuries. Things snowball in certain positions, and we've seen that so far this season. Professor Aggressor, thank you so much for the kind donation. Says if you are Gabby, you have to realise what's at stake. You have to be shrewd when it comes to the needs of the club and the pace need to be fit. Missing months, sorry mate, but he doesn't think about the club when he's playing for Brazil. He's a Brazilian. They don't think about the club. And if you learn your history about Gabriel in particular and what he's gone through with the Brazilian national side in the past, it makes complete sense why he would have played and why he wants to play. You need to take the power out of the player. You need, as a club or as a nation, as a country and coaches, to take the power out of the player and make the decision for them, because they're not going to make it. Fans like Professor Aggressor aren't going to understand why they can't make it, but I do and others do, and they can't be trusted to make the right decision because they're footballers and their brains are wired in a certain way that you cannot expect them to make the decision themselves. You just can't, especially in the context of Gabriel and Brazil and what he has gone through previously as well with that nation. Lizan says, I prefer Hincapié starting from the small sample size I've seen. He's our best ball-playing centre-back. Aoife says, Mosquera spent a whole year playing left centre-half for Valencia. He would be the favourite, or Hincapié. I think it'll be Mosquera, personally. Per says, I don't mean the system at Arsenal, but the league and cups, the amount of games combined with the national competition. Oh, yeah, of course, that is a huge part of it. The number of games, the volume of games, the fatigue is a massive part of that injury risk being increased, no doubt. Tom says, does the injury crisis adjust your title predictions? Are Man City now in a better position? No. Ryan says, how much percentage of Viktor Gyokeres' slow start is him compared to the service he's receiving? I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that he's playing every single game. Like, I don't think he's been eased in. He's had to have a trial by fire. I think there's something to do, obviously, with the style and with the system, and also with how oppositions are playing differently than what he played against when he was in Portugal. So there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors associated with it. Ian says, it is what it is. Many people believe our defensive squad is really good at this point. Let's see. We should be okay fielding Mosquera and Hincapié versus Spurs. Yorgi says, according to the ratings app, Hincapié performances look very good for Arsenal and Ecuador with great dual success. Do you think he comes in for Gabriel, or is it travelling from South America too much? I think it will be Mosquera. I think Hincapié has got a great chance, but I think that it will be Mosquera. I do think it will be the Spaniard that starts this game. Right, that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It is greatly appreciated, and I hope you've had an absolutely fantastic time listening to me and being bored by me in many, many ways. But it's been a real pleasure, as it always is, to sit down and talk and discuss with you everything regarding the Arsenal. So, yeah, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I greatly appreciate it. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, talking all things Arsenal once again ahead of the weekend. Maybe we'll get some more positive news. Maybe we won't. All bets are off. But thank you for listening. Greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.